All right. I'm here with my grandma Judy. She is on my mom's side of the family, and I have known her all my life, obviously. Uh, and she is married to someone who has diabetes and has to, live with that. And we're going to be talking about drug prices and drug caps and laws and policies that are in action or going to be proposed by both Massachusetts and Wisconsin. Grandma Judy,
Hello. Hi,
hi.
Axel.
How's it going?
Hey, I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. So, the first question I'm going to be asking you is like, when was your husband Ken first diagnosed with diabetes?
22 years ago.
And so he was not born. This was later gained, right?
Well, because he grew up in Mexico, the doctors who were treating him felt that he probably was a type 1 diabetic. But in Mexico, where he grew up, the doctors and things didn't back then didn't have tests and things that they do now.
Yeah.
So he he felt that he probably was in his early 20s when he when he thought he had diabetes.
Yeah. And so what are some of the programs that you use to get Ken's insulin?
Okay, so because Ken is disabled, he gets Medicare and Medicaid with extra help. That's a program that they have in Massachusetts that gives lower income people extra help to help pay for their drugs.
Mm-hmm.
Because Lantus, Humalog, the needles, the Ozempic, and the Dexcom 7 that
Yeah.
he is are absolutely outrageously expensive. Lantus for a month's supply is $549. That's
Craziness.
retail for everything. Humalog is 702. The needles, 61.99. 3 months of his Dexcom 7, which is his thing that tests his blood sugar continuously,
Yeah.
$505 for a 3 month supply. And his and his Ozempic, which he takes once a week, for a 3 month supply is $2,729.
Wild.
Yes. So he has Medicare, which pays some. He has Medicaid, which pays some. And then he also has what they call extra help, which is something that they offer in Massachusetts. And then he also, for the Ozempic, they also have a manufacturer's discount program for people who don't make a lot of money
Yeah.
because there is no lower cost alternate drug for a lot of these.
Yeah. Which is also, if we want to tie that in with the Inflation Reduction Act, like there's no generic brand drugs that are like, they're contemporaries pretty much.
Correct, correct. Though there are some lower cost ones that will go along with the Humalog, but they're still pretty expensive.
No doubt.
And the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022 really doesn't go into effect until 2026. And what they're doing is that they're negotiating prices that are covered under Medicare with Medicare, but it's 10 the first year in 2026, 50 the next year in 2027, 15 in 2028, and then another 20 in 2029, and then every year after they will reduce some. But um, with the current climate, they're trying to do away with this act. So in the state of Wisconsin, Tammy Baldwin has has introduced a bill. She introduced that on March 27th. It's called the Lower Drug Costs for Families Act, which would apply the same principles to the drugs used by people who are covered by private insurance. So it will also help with the Medicare and Medicaid, but also will help people who have private insurance, like your father and has for you guys.
Yep, through
But
FIS and some such like that. Yeah.
will also help the reduction, by reducing it for privatized insurance as well, because it just doesn't make any sense to have a private health insurance that you pay through the nose for, only to have to pay higher prices because they're not going to reduce them. They're only going to reduce them because the Inflation Reduction Act is only for Medicare and Medicaid, and the Lower Drug Costs for Families Act is for Wisconsin. And then our Governor Healy, signed into law in January, a thing that goes into effect on July 1st. It's what it is it's the biggest strains on Massachusetts family budgets, of course, are lowering the cost of out-of-pocket, excuse me, copays for inhalers, for heart medication, and for insulin. So there is not going to be any more than a $25 copay for everybody across the board. There will be, they closed the loopholes so that everything will be no more than $25. So it will be no more than a $25 copay for everybody.
And I think all of this really does tie into my next question as well.
Sure.
Um, how has the pricing been different inside Wisconsin compared to Massachusetts?
Well, the thing is like for the inhalers, for Lantus, for Humalog, for everything, they are the prices are the same. The retail prices are all the same because they get them from, like, Humalog comes from Lilly, Lantus comes from Lilly, so they're all the same prices. $549 for a month for Lantus, whether it's in Massachusetts or whether it's in Wisconsin,
Yeah.
it's still all the same price. It's just based on, and Medicare covers it, and Medicaid, which is kind of what they have in Wisconsin, they don't offer the same kind of reductions, so that people who are on Medicare and Medicaid in Wisconsin pay more. Hence why the Inflation Reduction Act of 22, which was passed by Biden, will make it the prices lower for everybody in the United States. Like I said, because of the political climate that we're in right now, some people want to do away with this Inflation Reduction Act of 2022. So in Wisconsin, they're trying to get the this Lower Drug Costs of Families Act, and
Yeah.
then in Boston, in Massachusetts, they also passed this. And I can see other states doing this as well when I do some reading, because I heard about what your mother said, is that kid died because he couldn't afford his
No, yeah.
his
It
his
jumped up by almost like 10 times.
right,
And
because it was a steroidal, instead of a regular, albuterol. It was more of he was taking a steroid and he couldn't afford it. And that's what this Lower Drug Costs of Families Act is going to do for the state of Wisconsin, will be lower the prices on his private insurance so that he wouldn't be paying that exorbitant amount every month. It will lower it, and it will force the drug companies to lower their prices. Because in here, like, for an albuterol inhaler, it runs around $20. But
yeah.
I think your parents pay that because they don't offer that.
No, they do not.
So,
Yeah.
right. So and I know your brother, requires inhaler.